You are live on 98.9 Northwest FM, and this is the Tuesday Review. I am Nathan.
I'm James.
And tonight we are talking about a few things, our main feature being Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm.
But first, I think we're going to start with the Orville.
Spider-Man first.
Spider-Man, of course.
Spider-Man.
Sorry, that was only released today.
Yeah.
The latest trailer.
Callum can't make it this week, but I think we can handle the show without him. And yeah, first, the Spider-Man Far From Home second trailer.
The first one was a teaser, but it couldn't really do much because it didn't want to spoil anything.
But teaser trailers now are pretty much just trailers.
Yeah.
But this is the first, I guess, big trailer.
And it reveals a lot more information than the first one, I would say.
We were going to see the movie regardless, so I was not interested in even watching the trailer. But it did have some things in that tied into our discussion of Endgame last week. So I thought, well, it might be interesting to at least speculate.
And major spoiler warning?
Yeah, so major spoiler warning for Avengers Endgame. The official sort of a Disney-sanctioned spoiler period is now over. But yeah, I don't think there are anyone listening live. If you are listening live, I've told you before, just listen to the podcast because the live portion of the show isn't the real show. And also the live hour-long show will end on a cliffhanger because then the discussion will continue afterwards.
Some people might like the thrill of listening live. Anything can happen.
But nothing that happens is really interesting. But yeah, like if you're listening live, don't just listen to the podcast because that's the full version of the show.
Listen live and then listen again.
No,
on
I
the podcast.
don't really recommend it. But anyway, what was I getting to? My ultimate point was we're going to do full spoilers for Avengers Endgame, tying into the new Spider-Man Far From Home trailer. And if you also don't want Far From Home spoiled just from the trailer, then don't listen. But in the podcast, I'll put in the description when to skip ahead. So if for some reason you haven't seen Endgame yet, what are you waiting for? And don't worry, you can skip ahead. But if you're listening live, which I don't think anyone is...
Don't turn over, just turn the volume down.
Just turn the volume down for like 5 minutes. All right, spoiler warning for Endgame. So in the trailer, it kind of... Last week we were speculating Far From Home would deal with the aftermath of what happened at the end of Endgame.
And we were right.
Yeah. But yeah, in the teaser, we didn't really get a sense of that, obviously, because Endgame hadn't come out yet.
I mean, yeah, and the movie being so heavily sort of reliant on Endgame, I suppose, like the teaser couldn't show much of anything, really.
So this trailer reveals that, spoiler warning again, Peter is now obviously dealing with the death of his mentor, Tony Stark.
And really coming back from a world that's 5 years ahead.
Well, they don't really play with that in the trailer, I don't believe.
No, but he would be.
But that's what we were speculating last week. That has to be a big part of the film, otherwise it's a major failure on Marvel's part. But in the trailer, we see that the world is sort of mourning Iron Man's death, and Peter especially is grieving over Tony's death, and Nick Fury comes to Peter with a mission and sort of presents him with the fact that someone needs to replace Iron Man as the world's utmost, biggest number one hero.
Yeah, and there's a few of the others are preoccupied. Captain Marvel's in space somewhere, not being able to be contacted. No. Cap's,
retired.
He doesn't want to...
He's just tired. He's just so tired.
The Hulk probably can't get angry anymore.
I don't know. What are they going to do with Smart Hulk now? He can't...
He doesn't have rage anymore.
Yeah, his arm's all messed up.
Thor's fat.
Yeah. No, he's in space too.
He's in space too.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's an interesting thing is dealing with who will take over, not as Iron Man, the hero.
But it's like the eminent hero. Yeah. The beacon of hope.
And so Nick Fury and other, people in the world are looking to Spider-Man to fill that role. And obviously Peter is hesitant to sort of take that up. But what we thought was interesting and what we wanted to talk about was that Mysterio in the movie claims to be from an alternate universe, an alternate dimension. and that there's the sort of multiverse,
which is very intriguing.
Which, one, Mysterio is probably just lying because he pretends to be a hero when he's actually the villain. That's his whole shtick. And that's what the trailer presents, is that he's this new hero from another dimension who's come to help. And Spider-Man has to team up with him. But, you know, if you know anything about Mysterio, is that he's full of crap. Like, he's going to be the bad guy.
I think you said to me before, he's the fireman who starts the fires.
Yeah, he creates disasters so he can come and save the day. But yeah, he pretends to be a hero, and Spider-Man has to sort of uncover his plan and like show people his actual real plans. But that's obviously the trailer doesn't give that away. But yeah, I speculated that Mysterio is just lying and he's not from another dimension. He's just claiming to be,
which would fit in with his character.
But I think at this point in the Marvel MCU, it would make sense to introduce the multiverse.
And the snap is a perfect opportunity because the amount of sort of power the snap generates,
it makes
somehow
sense.
Cause like a tear in time and space.
And multiverse is a big part of the comic books, and we just saw Spider-Verse recently, which dealt with the Spider-Man multiverse. So I don't know.
Which coincidentally one of the best superhero movies of the year.
Definitely. Possibly still maybe the best movie of last year. But anyway, it's possible that this is the perfect time to introduce the multiverse into the MCU, but also Mysterio might be lying, but also because Spider-Verse just dealt with this, they might not want to repeat themselves, even though technically that was all Sony and this one's Sony and MCU and live action and animated. But it'll be interesting to see how it develops. And Nathan was sort of theorizing, as what we were talking about last week.
Yeah, like a multiverse is the perfect entry point for the X-Men and some of the characters that Fox has owned. Yeah,
we were trying to, last week, trying to figure out how they might introduce the X-Men into the MCU, especially when it would be hard. Like, it doesn't really make sense to just be like, oh, they were here the whole time. So having a multiverse would be a really interesting way to introduce the X-Men into the MCU.
Yeah, there's stuff they could do. Like, for instance, Galactus?
Galactus.
Galactus
is DC. Galactus is Marvel. I think I have that right.
I knew it was one of them.
Yeah.
I'm like they could bring in some some big bad guy and be like, he's destroying our universe.
But see, because he's a space titan, I don't know if he's a titan, but because he's a big space guy, like you could just say he's off on the other side of the universe and Captain Marvel's dealing with him, and then he comes to Earth. So, like, you don't really... I mean...
but, like, they can sort of come up with that type of reasoning, being like, the mutants have fled, like, into another universe when a tear presented itself because Galactus or whoever is, like, destroying our universe.
Okay.
Like, as a means to escape.
Yeah.
Because otherwise there's not that much of a real reason for people to move over.
Yeah.
Like, they'll need a reason.
Also, if it is a multiverse, does that mean it means there's multiple versions of the same person?
Exactly.
So last week we were talking about how they brought Gamora back from a different timeline and how they were, possibly maybe going to bring Black Widow back, even though I don't think that's going to happen.
But multiverses raise that possibility.
Yeah, but then then
the deaths aren't as weighty.
It's kind of cheap, but also it's comic books, and we kind of want this kind of crazy alternate universe stuff. Like in it was a lot of fun in Spider-Verse, which is the most recent, biggest example of that.
But then in Spider-Verse, they handled it well because the different iterations of Peter Parker are all different, slightly different. Yeah. They didn't look exactly the same. They didn't have the same personalities.
Yeah, but I mean...
if they play with that, it's not as shticky, because then you could say...
Also...
if they bring back Black Widow, they could say it's not our Black Widow.
Also, if they make it hard or, it depends how you can travel between multiverses and...
If they did it as like a one-time thing because of the snap, then they could get away with it.
I think, like I said, a lot of comic book stuff deals with the multiverse, so to introduce it into the MCU, I think would be fine. But like they just have to be careful how they integrate it.
Yeah, because you don't want to make, like, say the deaths in Endgame feel cheap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we sort of talked about how the the alternate timeline stuff, like, we were fine with it, but people were complaining that ruined the whole MCU. But I don't think, that's going to come up every movie. Well, we can just go to the alternate timeline and get someone from there. But the multiverse, you could see some similar problems to that, similarities.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting if we came up with a few ideas of how the X-Men would be introduced.
This is the simplest.
But also, like I said, because there's multiple versions of the same person, it'd just be kind of weird if just the X-Men came through and weren't.
No, yeah, it presents itself as like an opportunity for them to just bring in any characters they want. They could have like an entire population move through a multiverse.
Maybe.
And people are just hidden in it.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to just be a few characters.
I mean, they won't do this, but that's just an interesting idea that I'm pretty sure I've seen in comics before, where it's like a group of quote-unquote refugees from another dimension come through to Earth.
Yeah.
But, yeah. No, that stuff won't happen. That won't happen.
It wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it's just
It's just interesting to speculate.
We thought, well, we were trying to figure out how the X-Men's going to come into play. But again, if the X-Men does come into play, it won't be for another 5-10 years, probably.
And Mysterio's a liar.
And Mysterio is also a liar. So this probably amounts to nothing, and, no one knows, except for maybe Kevin Feige. And even
he knows.
And even then, he probably doesn't have 100% concrete, because even though the Fox merger was going through from the last couple of years, because his plan goes on for so long,
he might have to amend plans or change them, or push things back.
Yeah, even he might not 100% know. I
guarantee you, he has a good idea.
He has the idea, yeah. But yeah, my ultimate what I want from Far From Home is dealing with the Vanished returning and dealing with that 5-year gap.
I think, as you said this morning to me, well before we were on the air, you said it's like a good epilogue, a good bookend to Endgame.
Yeah, I think we were talking about last week how it's like, yeah, it's that,
and it looks to be that sort of nice sort of epilogue, that nice final chapter in this phase of the Marvel.
This trailer definitely points more towards that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
And then we'll see if we get Spider-Man ever again.
Well, yeah, I mean, I still don't know what the deal with Sony is.
It was 5 movies.
Was it 5?
And that's up. It was 5.
Okay.
Two movies by himself and 3 in the MCU, like Avengers movies.
You know what they might do? If that's the case and they haven't renegotiated with Sony, Spider-Man might accidentally go through to or on purpose to save something or save someone. He might go through to the other dimension. So then when he doesn't appear in the MCU in the future, it makes sense. And if Sony decides to continue making Spider-Man movies, they can just say, well, he's in an alternate dimension where the MCU doesn't exist. This is all really...
That sounds so stupid.
This is too complicated, even for really big studios who are making really weird decisions and it's all business-minded.
They say business-minded and it's like tough negotiations, but have they made this much money from Spider-Man before?
That's exactly...
In a long while?
Sony screwed up Spider-Man so badly, they had to go to Marvel and be like, look, you guys seem to know what you're doing, we'll give you Spider-Man back, but we still own... pretty much the rights.
Yeah, they would be crazy not to sort of just re-up the deal.
I feel like they would.
They would have to.
Even if they say you can't use him for the next couple of movies, but it's like
they must know at an executive level.
Yeah,
they are very close to ruining the character. They can ruin the character again.
It would be really, really dumb for them at this point to be like, you can't use Spider-Man anymore.
Yeah, he's ours now. We've got all the leverage we need.
Also,
now we can ruin the property again.
I don't know. If Sony takes Spider-Man back and makes their own Spider-Man movie, is Tom Holland contracted to them?
That'd be...
Or is he contracted to the MCU?
Ooh.
I'm sure there's some information online about this, but I haven't read anything about that.
We'll continue with that conversation. We'll look it up during the episode and we'll
go back to it.
We'll go back to it.
But then... Okay, yeah, no, then that's not a spoiler, so we can add that in later. Okay, so if people have skipped, it doesn't matter. Well, I guess in that case, I'll start rambling on about the Orville while you're...
Rambling on? You mean, just capitulating on praising its glory as one of the best science fiction properties in recent memory.
You know, we always get really super depressed about the sci-fi franchises, and the Orville is the one we're still like really excited about.
Tom Holland's contract is 6 films.
I told you it was 6 last week.
But the Marvel contract is 5.
So maybe Sony is going to make one on their own with Tom Holland to cash in.
I'll double check that, but I was quite sure it was 5 movies with Marvel. And Tom Holland's personal contract is 6.
So yeah, maybe they will take Spider-Man back, keep Tom Holland. But then do they own all the designs and stuff of the MCU? What about all the other cast members that are important? Maybe this is where the multiverse comes in, where it's like he's alone in the multiverse and they can just cast the other people. I feel like we're doing a better job of thinking about this than Sony and Marvel.
Yeah.
But Kevin Feige has a plan, and yeah, I don't know.
I mean, an article I'm reading on the internet says that Sony hopes to extend the deal.
Okay.
So that would sort of make a lot of sense of what we're saying. They don't want to just throw money down the drain.
I can't see the MCU being like, no, we don't want to extend the deal.
Yeah.
So if Sony wants to do it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So the original deal was Spider-Man would be in the MCU movies for 5.
Yeah.
And that's been the deal.
Yeah.
And now that it's up, apparently Sony's hoping to extend it, which they would be stupid not to.
Yeah.
But Tom Holland's deal is 6.
You know what? They're just probably waiting to see after Far From Home comes out, and it'll do well. But they'll probably just wait till that comes out, and then they'll say we've renewed or we haven't renewed our contract or deal or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're probably just waiting until that comes out.
So he at least is owed one more movie after this.
So we'll see how that pans out, and hopefully he stays in the MCU. Like I was saying last week with Endgame, you know, we want to explore more comic stuff from the comics, like Secret Wars, which Spider-Man's a part of. So yeah, hopefully. And again, like we talked about last week, as much as I hate Disney owning everything, I would just like for Kevin Feige to be able to play with any character he wants to.
Yeah, I know.
Because at the moment,
deal with the devil, but it's like, but we want it.
Yeah, but it's like all this kind of like, is Spider-Man going to be in it or not? It's kind of like, no, just let him have it.
Yeah,
let him do what he wants.
Yeah, so there's hope, I guess. Sony's not stupid; they want to renegotiate, apparently.
Yeah,
according to a headline. But back to what we're talking about, the Orville.
Yeah,
the best science fiction show on television right now.
Yeah, so I guess I won't do spoilers for the Orville right now, but basically the last 2 episodes of the second season have aired and were a sort of double episode, and I really liked the second to last episode, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which Nathan wasn't too hot on, but I really enjoyed it. But it led into the final episode of the season, and we talked. Should we just do full spoilers?
Yeah, full spoilers for the Orville, because apparently nobody watches it.
No one watches it, especially in Australia, which I don't even know if you can watch it.
It's on SBS.
Oh, it is, yes. Yeah. So, yeah, you should watch it. 1, you should watch it, and 2, I'll put the timestamp so you can skip ahead if you haven't seen the Orville Season 2. So, spoiler warning for the Orville Season 2. But yeah, as I was saying, yeah, the last couple of episodes I really liked. I liked the second to last episode a lot, which focuses on Kelly and the alternate timeline.
Yeah, alternate timeline. This alternate timeline episode.
Multiverse, yeah,
look, as you said before, I wasn't too hot on that episode. I found it a little boring, but I felt that it, like, after watching the finale, it was necessary. Yeah,
but like I said a couple of weeks ago when we were sort of, I think we smushed it in between another conversation. I really liked the ending to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
The ending was good.
But even if the finale didn't exist, like if that episode never came out, I liked just the implications of that ending.
Yeah.
Like even after everything she went through, she's just like, no, this is my life. And I would be happy I would have been happy for them to never address that again, Or I would have been happy for them to leave that as the cliffhanger finale and then start season 3 with the Mirrorverse.
Yeah.
Or I would have been probably, this is my ultimate, like, I would hope for, is that they don't address it again, and then halfway through season 3, they're just like, Mirrorverse episode. And you're like, wait, what is, who's this? What? And then you realize, oh, that's Kelly from that Mirrorverse episode, and then they slowly explain to you that it's actually an alternate timeline, and then, you know, crosses over with the main crew timeline. So that would have been cool. But what they did is they made it a 2-parter.
Which was still good.
Which I think Nathan just liked because he was like not so hot on the second last episode.
I thought it was a little slow.
And then the last episode, which is called The Road Not Taken, because it's about the alternate timeline.
It's about what would have happened, yeah. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was like Star Wars level adventuring.
Yeah, like just like the music was just so Star Wars. Like the music for the Orville has always been really, really good, but this finale episode especially was like super Star Warsy in the music,
and even
but also
the CG was really good in some like the ship they find. There was like the trawler.
You know what? The designs for the Orville ships are
really good,
way better than a lot of the designs for the new Star Trek and the new Star Wars.
And the show runs on such a tight budget.
Yeah, like the costumes and that are still TV, and the lighting and that. But when it comes to actually the CG budget and the ships flying and stuff, it all looks really good. And I like the designs of everything.
They do really well with what little they have.
Yeah.
Which it makes all the difference, man.
Oh, yeah. And like we always talk about on the show, it's about the characters in the story. If the special effects aren't great, who cares?
Exactly.
As long as you care about the characters and what's going on. And the Orville...
Some of the stories in this, like, they're just like standalone episodes about a character. There's a lot more character-driven episodes in this movie, like just singular character-focused.
Yeah, but I mean that's the luxury of having a show. You can explore things over a longer period of time. You can have character-focused episodes.
But it's like not all shows do that. Like, there's a lot of shows where they'll just focus on a couple of characters, but in this season in particular, we've seen episodes that focus on like a wider range.
That's why I liked the second last episode, because it focused on Kelly, who we haven't really had a Kelly episode before.
I don't think we've ever had a proper Kelly focused episode. And while I wasn't too hot on the episode, I still approve.
Yeah. I like that, and I like the whole multiverse questions of alternate, like what would you do if you knew your future self and stuff like that.
I mean, I saw some sort of people like cracking the shits a little bit with it on the fact that like in the episode they hide in a black hole.
Oh, that was in the last episode.
Yeah, in the final episode. Like there was a few people having problems with that, but I'm like, but it's science fiction, man. It's a swashbuckling.
The show definitely plays fast and loose with the realism and the science, but most sci-fi shows do. It wasn't a huge.
Nah, like just it's like
it was dumb, but it was kind of like you get over it. But yeah, the last episode is much more adventurous because it's in the alternate timeline. It has sort of Star Trek Mirrorverse vibes where everything's more dangerous. There's a more pirate kind of feel to everything, because in this timeline, the Kalons
destroyed everything.
They destroy Earth? Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they destroyed Earth, and they destroyed the Orville and like wiped out the Union fleet and slowly,
because good old Ed Mercer wasn't there to like keep it all together.
Which someone on Reddit brought up the point is that Seth MacFarlane has to be really narcissistic to write.
Did he write it?
Well, I don't think he wrote it.
Fair.
Yeah,
like,
but it's like, it's true. But it's like his character gets Kelly's character, like Kelly rejects his character and therefore causes the apocalypse pretty much.
It sounds bad, all right, but it works in the show.
Yeah.
And
but
like I
can see their point.
I can see their point, but we have to give Seth props for having this show, you know.
Oh yeah.
In to begin with.
Yeah. It's so good. I also like, because it's the Mirrorverse, they get Alara back for like a cameo.
That was cool.
Which I was hoping.
I didn't expect to see her. And then she's on the screen.
When it was a Mirrorverse episode, I'm like, well, it's Mirrorverse, so you have to have like another version of her, but it's like I wasn't sure if she was coming back or not, you know, and she's only in a short scene, like it's like a cameo.
And we get the "Can you open this jar of pickles?"
Yeah, but it's for what's her name?
Oh, the other lady.
The other one, Kiali.
Kiali, okay.
Yeah, but that's a good sort of callback's not the right word. It's a good reference because in this universe he never met Alara.
Yeah,
and so he uses the jar of pickles for someone else. But yeah, in the main timeline, that's his sort of thing with Alara. But I hope they bring Alara back more in like other future episodes, kind of like how Tasha Yar appeared in a few episodes of Next Generation here and there across the whole series. Like not every season, but it's like once or twice.
But she's still an established character, even if she's not on screen.
Yeah. So I'm hoping and it depends on Halston Sage, the actress, like what her availability is or if she's interested. But like just in terms of the science fiction, I would like, and the world and the characters, I would like for her to come back every once. You know what I would like? I would like an Alara and Kiali team up episode.
That would be cool.
You know, just like, oh, hey, I'm back
that could
for a visit. And
that could bridge the gap between like the audience as us viewers not knowing the new security chief as well as Alara, and it could be like a dual focus.
I'm because Alara left like 3 episodes in, and I'm not sure how their writing process worked. But I have a feeling some of the scripts they had already and just had to rewrite Alara's parts for Kiali.
Probably.
But I'm hoping in the next season to have a Kiali-centric episode to deal with her character. Because we haven't had a Kiali episode yet.
I think what you said was right. I think probably they had to just sort of rush some, like add some more stuff in.
Like she's not a bad character.
We just don't know.
But at the moment, she's just a replacement for Alara. Like she's the same species, same strength. Like there's not a lot of. She's a bit more like rough around the edges, if you want to say that. But other than that, like she's not different enough. And I mean that's kind of like we were when Alara left. We were talking about how I didn't want them to just replace her with Alara 2.0. At the moment, they've sort of done that a little bit.
But I think you're right. We have to give them a chance.
Yeah, I like Kiali. She's not exactly the same, but I think they need to develop her character more and do more.
And fingers crossed the Orville gets season 3 so we can get that chance.
I'm like, it's on Fox, and they have a pretty weird track record with their shows, especially sci-fi shows. I'm surprised it even got a season 2. I don't know how there's a fan base for sure, but I don't know how big it is.
I mean, the show's only alive because of Seth MacFarlane. Yeah, and he's sort of pulled with the station.
I wouldn't be surprised if they cancelled it.
And if it does, I hope someone picks it up.
That's exactly like I feel like.
Because the lore, the world building, it's such a good show. It's
the show we need.
It's the show we need
when Star Trek and Star Wars suck.
And the world's a pretty miserable place. And this show is largely positive.
Yeah.
We need some of that
spirit.
Hope.
Yeah, the spirit of Star Trek, the kind of utopian vision of the future. Yeah, I hope if it does get cancelled that someone will pick it up. I'm assuming because it's a commercial television show on Fox, and like we said, the budget is... I hope the budget is manageable for another network to pick up.
I mean, I'm sure it is. Like, it's not...
Because we always say, Netflix should take it. But Netflix
is weird as well.
It's like sometimes they'll save a show, sometimes they won't, sometimes they'll run... Like, they've been cancelling a lot of their own stuff.
They saved Lucifer.
Yeah.
Of all shows to save. Like, I'm not dissing Lucifer.
Yeah.
I somewhat enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But... at the same time, why Lucifer?
Exactly. Is that show more popular than a lot of the other shows they've been cancelling?
As far as I know, it didn't do that well.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, but I feel like if the Orville got cancelled, Netflix wouldn't be the one to save it.
It'd probably, hopefully, I would imagine it'd be another network, like commercial network, but I don't know who would take it.
Who picked up Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
NBC, but that show started at NBC.
Did it?
Oh, originally it was developed by NBC and
then they sold it.
And then they sold it.
Was it ABC?
Fox.
Oh, it was on Fox. And then Fox cancelled it and then NBC. Okay.
So, like, they brought it back to NBC, and then NBC was like, it's coming home, everybody. Like...
Oh, okay.
So
that's interesting.
That's, yeah, that... But I think someone would have picked up Brooklyn Nine-Nine anyway.
Yeah, it's because it's popular enough.
It's popular. The thing is, the metrics
Fox is weird. Why did they cancel?
Because the metrics they use largely don't take into account streaming.
Yeah, because they're a bunch of old people who don't understand how people people watch things.
Like the live ratings aren't great, and they're probably not great for the Orville.
Yeah.
But the Brooklyn Nine-Nine has a massive youth following.
Yeah.
So, because Andy Samberg and like the Terry Crews and the cast.
The style of humour.
And the style of humour. So, kids aren't going to watch it live.
Yeah.
They'll watch it on demand.
Yeah.
And there's the on-demand sort of platform's numbers were huge. They were huge.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that much of an issue getting picked up.
Yeah.
This
is what I'm worried about the Orville. Like,
this is that would be the main reason we get cancelled.
I feel like if it was, this is the problem with like.
It's a problem with all television.
Yeah, it's like no one watches TV anymore. At least not in the same way as they used to. So, like the Orville, I don't think it's not a show that would do well on television, but streaming.
It would do well.
Yeah.
And the only thing the show has going for it again is Seth MacFarlane's pull in the industry.
Hopefully, he's gonna... Because they even cancelled Family Guy, remember? And then they brought it back.
Yeah.
It's like, they're crazy. Like, they make weird decisions all the time.
So, the only thing that could save the Orville, if they were to cancel it, it's Seth MacFarlane's baby.
Yeah.
He's not just an actor on it. So he could go to all his connections and be like, someone needs to take my show.
Hopefully that's what... If it does get cancelled, that's what happens. Because it would be sad if it just ended. Yeah,
I don't see him taking it lying down.
Yeah,
because this is the show he's always wanted to do.
Yeah, like I know it's not Star Trek, but I hope it kind of develops.
It's also the show that's not Star Trek.
Yeah. But I want it to be its own thing, and it is its own thing. But also I hope it develops like Star Trek does, where it kind of gets better as it goes along.
So far, I think it has.
And the budget gets bigger, and the designs get better, and the special effects get better, and I'm hoping for a costume change. What do you call it? Uniform change, because when the show started, it was like, we're not Star Trek, we're kind of funny, and we're like kind of not low budget, but we're a TV budget, and the costumes are kind of like colourful and
we just like
blocky.
You didn't have a dog as an alien.
just stick antennas on its head. But now that it's getting going and it's actually the science fiction stuff is really good, I'm like, I hope they kind of maybe redesign some of the uniforms and stuff, make it look a bit more.
Like we need a Supernatural style situation where the CEO of the network is like, over my dead body, will this show get cancelled?
Yeah, but then you don't want it to go for 12 seasons.
15.
Oh wow, okay. I was a bit lowball estimation there. Yeah, like as much as I love the Orville, if they dragged it out for 15 seasons, I don't think that would be a good idea. Yeah, I mean, look what's happening with Game of Thrones. They're just rushing it now because they don't have any time or money left, and they're just like, we have to finish, and the show's suffering. So you can imagine season 15 of the Orville,
it's set in Seth MacFarlane's garage.
Yeah, it's just like everyone's just like, ah. So yeah, I'm hoping it gets a few more seasons, but I'm hoping it sort of gets maybe a bit more budget, a bit more better designs, better special effects, and then it kind of gets to a point where it ends satisfyingly.
And I want a Blu-ray release.
Is it not on Blu-ray?
Nah. Fox stopped Blu-ray production for their shows because it's too expensive. They do home releases.
Simpsons is on Fox, right? And I read an article where they were only releasing Simpsons on Blu-ray and not DVD anymore.
Oh, maybe The Simpsons is different?
Maybe because that's still a big kind of flagship show.
Probably. But I've also read the Orville does not have a Blu-ray release, only DVD.
Maybe because only old people buy DVDs, and it's like, well, for the old people you get the DVDs, but for everyone else you're going to watch it streaming. Yeah. But I would when it finishes, I'm going to buy the Blu-ray box set. But if it doesn't exist,
that's what I would do. Like I would buy the box set when it's all said and done. Yeah. But hopefully we'll get that. But apparently they're not too hot on the sort of Blu-ray home release anymore.
That's sad. Yeah, I don't like when
but like
companies do that.
Like, I'm sure it's more expensive, but DVD? I know DVD is still the most popular sort of platform around the world, like all markets considered.
Yeah.
But DVD?
But it's like, I wouldn't want to buy it on DVD.
Like, I'd rather just stream it in high definition.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it does come out on Blu-ray.
And shout out to the meme I saw on the internet about what Bortus did on the Orville alone for 6 months.
Yeah. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, that's exactly what he was doing. I knew.
Yeah.
But
people who watch will know what we mean.
Yeah. But a certain addiction
a certain addiction,
which we've talked about before. But
the addiction that's not smoking.
No. Oh yeah, he had that addiction too. Yeah. He's got an addictive personality. But yeah, was it in what episode? It was in the second last episode with the dancing.
Yes,
where
they went to a
Bortus
club,
and Clyde go to a club, and it's hilarious, funniest thing I've ever seen.
Oh my god! Like they are some of the best character moments. Like the sort of the humor moments. Some of the Bortus ones.
I think Bortus and Clyde are my favorite characters. They're hilarious, but also like when they get into the serious stuff, it's really serious.
Yeah.
Also, like I think we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about what show were we talking about a couple of weeks ago? Oh, or movie.
Ooh. I'm blanking now.
Yeah, I watched so many movies I can't remember. Because we were like talking about it, and then we just like you mentioned the Orville, and we went on a like tangent for 5 minutes about the Orville.
Last week was Endgame.
Yeah. What was the week before that? It was a new movie, was it? Pet Sematary?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about Pet Sematary, and then you're like the Orville, and then Callum hadn't watched the episode. Me and you went on on a tangent, and then we're like, we'll talk about it not next week because Endgame. We'll talk about the week after, which is now what we're talking about. But yeah, I think during that episode we mentioned, was it the third to last episode, the one with the Moclan female planet?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a really good episode.
That was a really good episode.
That might be my favourite episode of the season. But all the episodes have been good, so it's kind of hard to...
My favourite in the season at the moment?
The cigarette one?
No, it's that episode.
So good.
Not for that joke, though. I like the storyline involving Gordon.
Yeah. No, yeah, that was a good episode. Yeah. It's just a good show. If you haven't watched The Orville and you like sci-fi and you like comedy...
Even if you don't, give it a shot.
True.
Like it's
I think it's accessible enough.
It's accessible enough, and it has the sort of some of the humor you like from like Seth MacFarlane's sort of style of humor.
Yeah.
But it's like it also is a good character drama at the heart of it.
The characters are just likable. Like I like watching them. I like seeing like what they're gonna do next.
I think that one of the things I like about the show is like the sort of the character dynamic. It's almost like. It's like you see Star Trek Discovery and it's like a military sort of thing. Whereas
it's very cold.
It's very cold, but the Orville's warm and it's like they're a family on the ship. It's like that sort of community atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it's like they always tackle these problems together. Yeah,
it's all about friendships and relationships.
It's all that cheesy sort of stuff that we need right now. And like the competition, Star Trek Discovery is that cold military sort of action.
Or even like Star Wars where the characters are not characters, they're just there to run around and shoot things.
Exactly.
And like there's this surface level, it gives off this surface level vibe of like, oh, these guys are friends, but in reality it's like they haven't really done anything together or learned anything. But we'll talk about Star Wars now.
Okay.
Because trigger warning for all listeners and all non-listeners, because the ripple effect of my anger goes out into
beyond the station,
into the ether, beyond the radio waves and beyond the podcast. So we're gonna talk about Cobra Kai, which we love, arguably the best show on television.
Certainly the best thing on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely the best YouTube show
by a long mile.
It's like the only YouTube show. Everything else is just like PewDiePie trash. Did his show get cancelled because he's like? We shouldn't talk about that. That guy's a Nazi, and I don't know why.
He has a soft spot in my heart, but he's made some bad decisions.
Yeah, but yeah, Cobra Kai is a show we all love, and it's...
Hold on, should we start... For listeners who... We've referenced the show before,
Yeah.
But let's start at the beginning. So
Yeah.
it is a follow-up to the Karate Kid franchise.
Yeah, it's
the original franchise, not the reboot.
No, not the Jaden Smith crap. That doesn't exist. The original, like, 80s Karate Kid movies, this is the modern TV show spin-off of that.
And we've always liked these films.
Yeah.
Like, they're classics.
Yeah.
And initially, we were worried.
Oh, very worried. Like,
I was cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
But it could have gone tits up.
Like most reboots of beloved franchises, we were expecting it to just end up being crap, or to being, like, you know, going in the wrong direction, or, you know, because we've seen that a lot. But it ended up being really good because of the way it handled the characters 30 years on. Like, now,
good.
Characters who were in their teens are now in their middle-aged, and the way it dealt with that, while also feeling fresh and introducing new characters.
I mean, and the themes of the Karate Kid itself are timeless.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an issue of it feeling tired, because
it's like classic underdog story or whatever, but
it's always going to be relevant.
It's not just a retread of the original movies.
No.
Like, it takes what happened in the original movies and, like, expands upon them and develops the characters based on the choices we see them make in the originals, but plus 30 years of other stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just so good. Yeah. So, like, as you said, it's like 30 years of other stuff. It's like, where are these characters now?
Yeah.
And it's like Daniel owns a successful car dealership.
Yeah.
There's like all of that. We know nothing about that. Like, how that happened or anything.
Oh, yeah, we didn't see the actual process, but
it's like, it's realistic.
Yeah.
It's Johnny's sort of down on his luck.
Yeah.
Working a really crappy sort of installation job.
He's like a handyman.
He's a handyman.
Yeah, like, he took the loss to Daniel in the original Karate Kid hard.
It wasn't just that, though. It was like the loss of Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he's sort of his brothers and like they're all.
But it's like, because he was hot shit in high school, and then he lost to the new kid and lost Cobra Kai, which was like his
family,
twisted family, and then that set him on the path of, like, alcoholism and
sad times.
being a kind of a bum. But it's not a grim dark show. Like, it's comedy. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's so good.
But it also deals with the characters really well and the emotional moments really well. And I like how, it uses the original Karate Kid movies as a basis to tell its own story and to go do its own thing.
And it does it so well.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen this before and it never works.
Yeah. Well, almost never, except for
Creed,
which was based on Rocky, directed by John G. Avildsen. And Cobra Kai is directed on The Karate Kid, directed by John G. Avildsen. So you can see, like, maybe we should just, like, reboot John G. Avildsen movies. No. But it's like, it's that story is of, like the underdog. Because The Karate Kid and Rocky follow a similar formula of, like, the underdog, showing he can go the distance, standing up to the quote-unquote bully.
But they also have good characters too.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they're good, like, dramas. But yeah, it's like the way Creed dealt with, like, 40 years of, like, Rocky franchise history, while also being its own movie and feeling fresh and modern and doing its own thing. Cobra Kai does the same thing. So I think those are the two best, most successful reboots or continuations of beloved 80s, like, franchises.
Definitely.
Because of how they deal with, how they continue on without just feeling masturbatory, like J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, it doesn't get stuck in the past.
Yeah.
But it does acknowledge its sort of roots.
It's like, every time we watch it, I always say to you, I'm like, I love how the show deals, it has nostalgia, but it uses it to develop the characters.
Yeah.
Johnny is stuck in the 80s.
Which is also funny at the same time.
Which has a lot of great jokes.
But it's also, it's like not core of his character.
Exactly. It's not just there to say, hey, remember this guy? Hey, remember that? It's there because Johnny, that was his, like, when he was at the top of his game.
And it's not a joke too. It's like I've seen people like that in my life.
Oh yeah,
like people that they peak in the 80s. They peak when they're like.
We'll talk about it now, but it's the MAGA problem. Make America Great Again.
It's that
this idea.
Glasses of I used to be like when I was 17, I was amazing, and it was 1983.
All the chicks loved me. I had a car. And it's like, so to them, it's like, well, that's when it was the best.
It's that classic rock sort of era, sort of like.
And that's Johnny's character. He's stuck in that era. And so there's all these nostalgia scenes of like literal, what do you call it, flashbacks cutting to scenes from the original Karate Kid.
Which is another good thing I think we should talk about very quickly.
Yeah.
The fact that they are able to use all of these footage from the movies and even some cut footage from the original films.
Yeah.
Because we've seen some sort of reboots where they haven't, or some shows where they haven't been able to use flashbacks. For instance, there was a movie, I forget, Callum's not here, so he would know the band name. There was a band movie where they didn't have the right, this is by the band.
I remember they made a Jimi Hendrix movie with Andre 3000 where they couldn't get the rights to Jimi Hendrix music.
That's ridiculous.
So, like, at that point you just scrap the movie.
So it's good to see that they were able to get like the sort of the rights to these old films.
Yeah, and it's like I said, they don't just replay these scenes for nostalgia and say, "Oh, remember this? How cool was that scene?" It's like a character's remembering things, and then it informs their development.
Yeah, the only time we ever see a flashback is when, say, Johnny's remembering something.
Yeah,
and that's informing the scene.
Or it's like Daniel remembering one of Mr. Miyagi's teachings.
Yeah, but it informs the scene. That's it's relevant to the scene that we're in.
Yeah, and then he also then imparts that wisdom on the younger characters. And what I like about the show is the new characters are also interesting. It's not just, hey, remember Daniel, son, and Johnny Lawrence, the bully. It's like, there are new younger characters who these characters teach karate, who the original characters teach karate, and like they have their own drama and stuff. And I think like with Creed, Cobra Kai is like the best continuation of that beloved sort of franchise because of the way it deals with the continuation and the development of the characters over that long period of time, and the way it passes the torch from the original characters to these new, younger characters. And it's why Cobra Kai is a better Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi.
By far.
I said trigger warning, didn't I? Yeah. I said trigger warning.
We watched, for a bit of context, James, myself, and Callum watched all of the original films. Yeah. And we rewatched the season one of Cobra Kai in anticipation for season 2.
Yeah, before binging season 2.
Even when we were watching Karate Kid 1, we were talking about how it's a really good Star Wars movie.
Yeah, we'll talk about later. Like, the original Karate Kid trilogy, with all the Daniel, like, excluding the fourth one, that, like, you can remake those, like we always say on every show, you can remake those into good Star Wars movies. You can remake Karate Kid 3 into a great Last Jedi style movie, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, like the way it deals with nostalgia, like, in Force Awakens, all the references and nostalgia was just there for that. It was just there to be masturbatory, to say, hey, remember Stormtroopers, hey, remember TIE Fighters, hey, remember lightsabers, hey, look at this is cool. The new characters would, like I said during the Orville section of the discussion, the new Star Wars characters, Finn, Rey, Rose, they're just there to be there.
They're just there as vehicles.
They're just there as vehicles, and they're just there to do the things that the original characters would have done in the originals. Whereas in Cobra Kai, the new characters are their own characters. They're interesting in their own right, and it's up to the legacy characters, you can call them that, like Daniel and Johnny.
To inform their teachings.
And to teach them and to butt heads
forward
with them and to impart knowledge on them. And those kids are going to screw that up and make mistakes, which we'll talk about. But ultimately, they're going to take the torch and carry on the legacy, which the Star Wars movies haven't done well. They squandered that opportunity when they left Luke out of Force Awakens, killed off Han, left Leia
largely unused.
Yeah, largely unused. Then killed Luke off, and Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away. So at this point, it's like, and the new characters haven't really earned or developed at all. So yeah, they never really,
there was never that.
It doesn't feel like a good continuation, and also
there was never that opportunity for Han, Luke, and Leia to impart much of that wisdom onto the newer generation, like they've done so well in Cobra Kai.
Exactly, and also like we were talking about just at the start of the discussion about how the Cobra Kai deals with that 30-year gap so well. Daniel is now a successful car salesman, and it just kind of makes sense for his character. No, he didn't go on to become a karate champion at 50 and like still teach karate.
Yeah, but what he did get was a load of classic cars from Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, it's like he learned karate. He loved it. It brought purpose to his life.
It helped him find his balance.
Ultimately, he went to college. He got married. He had kids, and he started a car dealership. Like, he's a normal guy. And you kind of explains, and as the series goes on, it explains how he uses Miyagi's teachings in his day-to-day life. But at the start of season 1, he's kind of forgotten about that. He's gone more into the business side. He's using karate and Mr. Miyagi's bonsai trees as like a marketing gimmick for his business.
Which I'm not sure that Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, exactly. Like. But that's what I'm saying. He's kind of lost his way.
And just a quick shout out to the fact that the car yard, while it seems like a normal thing, like the fact that Mr. Miyagi had his own little car lot,
it's almost
it's a natural progression.
Yeah, so that's kind of my point. Is like Cobra Kai deals with that long gap so well by kind of informing. It's not even like beating you over the head with it. And saying like, this is what's happened in the 30 years. It's just like a natural progression of where these characters would end up.
It's so rewarding to see like these I'd say we'll call them life decisions play out 30 years later when you watch the original movie.
Yeah. And how the character's obsession with the 80s and the original movies kind of it has ruined or informed their current lives. But it's what's the new Star Wars movies do so poorly is they completely ignored that 30-year gap between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. They didn't really explain Luke's character change. They haven't explained the rise of the First Order. And they just leave that gap completely, and at this point it's too late. We were talking about a couple of weeks ago, we were joking like Episode 9 has to be like mostly flashbacks. But yeah, we'll continue this discussion off air because we're out of time. But thank you everyone for listening. If you're listening live, Matt's up next with his show Car Talk, so stick around for that. Otherwise, if you're listening to the podcast, we'll be back in a sec. All right, so we're back and we were talking about how Cobra Kai deals perfectly with the sort of long gap between when the Karate Kid movies originally ended in the 80s and how, it kind of, reboots them. Not, reboot's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And how, it kind of, it feels like a natural progression. Whereas, in Star Wars, mostly because of The Last Jedi, but Force Awakens has the problems as well. It's like, how did we get here? It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The First Order comes out of nowhere. The Republic is nowhere to be seen. Kylo's...
That's because they want you to read the book. Star Wars, there's a large
if they want me to read the book, they're doing a bad job because I don't want to read the book.
Yeah, no, I mean, neither. They're terrible books. But the problem Star Wars has, especially modern Star Wars, is that they're lazy in that they want to fill all that gap, all that missing lore. Yeah. They just stick in a novel. And the novel's not even well written.
You know what? They want to do all that without actually any of the character building or world building scenes.
Exactly.
We talked about how... Force Awakens is just quick, get to the next scene, I think J.J. Abrams has this problem in most of his movies where no one ever just sits and talks. No one ever there's no world building, there's no character moments. It's just, we have to run and get to the next scene quickly. And we have to make lots of jokes and yell a lot to get there. And so, it doesn't make sense But yeah, like I was saying, that 30-year gap, it doesn't make Luke's, Kylo's corruption and Luke's sort of turn to being super depressed and grumpy. It's not well explained. It comes out of nowhere. It's not developed well, and it doesn't effectively, what's the word? It doesn't jumpstart or reboot the sort of feeling of like, this is the new adventure for this series.
Yeah, and that's because largely it doesn't really have the same themes. It doesn't have the same
feeling, the spirit.
Same spirit. Yeah. Whereas Cobra Kai does.
Exactly. It's like, it feels like, Daniel and Johnny could disappear from Cobra Kai next season, and the younger characters,
they could still drive it forward.
It could drive it. Like
it will be missing bit of the charm.
But you know what I mean.
But the story could continue faithfully without them.
Whereas we discussed a few weeks ago with the Rise of Skywalker trailer, where it's like, we're at the end of the trilogy, we don't really know anything about anyone, the characters aren't interesting, and Rey and Finn are just like, I don't care about them. They can't continue a franchise. Like, just end, and that's why we're glad. Just end it. Whereas we're up to season 2 of Cobra Kai, and season 3 has just been announced, which we're so glad. But it's like, this show could keep going, and it really feels.
Well, there was Ralph Macchio was saying that the creators have a vision on where they want to take these characters. They're not sure like how many seasons it will take to get there, but like they have like a vision that extends over and you like 5, 6, 7 seasons.
But you can see that, and I would be happy even if it was just 3 seasons. Like, you can definitely see like they're working towards something. Because Daniel and Johnny obviously have beef from back in the 80s, but they're kind of slowly working it out. But then something will go wrong, and they'll start fighting again. But I think they're definitely working to. You can see they're working towards like a final reconciliation, not just between the characters, but with what happened in the 80s, what happened in their childhoods. And I guess we'll sort of segue into spoilers because we're being pretty vague. But yeah, like Cobra Kai is just such a great show. And even if you're not like a Karate Kid fan, like just watch the original, and then you can binge. They're half-an-hour episodes, 10 episodes.
Not all. Some are like 20, 25 minutes. A couple of them, I think.
25 to 30. They're 30-minute, half-an-hour episodes, 10-episode seasons. You can binge season 1 and 2 pretty quickly. They're very digestible. But yeah, you don't have to be a Karate Kid fan. It's just a fun show. It's funny. The characters are interesting. And it takes it in a new, interesting direction while still keeping the spirit of the originals and having a logical progression from the originals. So, yeah, we love Cobra Kai, and we can't wait for season 3. We're so happy it got renewed.
We're fanboys.
Yeah.
It's so good.
But, yeah, we'll do full spoilers now. So, if you haven't seen the original Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3, or if you haven't seen seasons 1 and 2 of Cobra Kai, we're going to do like a full spoiler discussion. And also Last Jedi and Force Awakens and Star Wars spoilers as well. But yeah, so this is a major spoiler warning for Cobra Kai. But basically, what was I saying? I was saying like the way it deals with the sort of characters and continuing the themes and continuing the logical progression. But it uses that not for nostalgia, but to develop where these characters are at now. So we'll talk more about season 2 because that's the one that's just come out.
And it has some juice in it.
Oh, it's really good. But in this sort of season, because like, as we said, Daniel has his business, and in this season, he's sort of trying to balance karate and his work life and his family life.
He's sort of forgotten the balance that is basically the basis of the original movie trilogy.
Yeah. Like Miyagi-Do karate is all about balance.
And he's sort of forgotten that balance in his life.
Yeah.
Kind of, his business is everything. And he's put into a situation where he feels the need to start practicing his karate more.
That's what I think is interesting is Daniel has a family. He has a successful business. Karate is like, he still likes karate, but like it's still an important part of him. But it's like he wasn't all about karate. And it's like Cobra Kai coming back is what sort of forced him to
sort of begin again.
Which is an interesting discussion because I feel like that's very anti-Miyagi-Do philosophy.
100%.
It's like bringing something back for offense.
And we sort of see that transition of Daniel LaRusso actually sort of being aware of that throughout season 2.
Yeah, it's great.
It's great.
I love how they kind of, they because Daniel can be a very Hippocratic? No.
Hypocritical.
Hypocritical.
Hippocratic, yeah, take the Hippocratic oath when you become a doctor.
Oh, we'll talk about doctors later. I've got, But, he's very hypocritical because, he tried to teach his Miyagi stuff, but he's very quick to judge. He's very quick to, he won't, quote unquote, strike first, but he always ends up, misreading the situation and getting into a fight. And, I kind of like that. He's a very flawed guy. Even the original movies.
Yeah, he's like that.
We'll talk about Karate Kid 3, where, he's kind of that's kind of what he's he's a good person at heart, but he's a bit hot-headed.
Yeah, and he's the same in the show. Exactly the same.
But it just works so well for this, middle-aged man to be, angry about his, business competitors and, his, fat, annoying son.
Yeah, but the son is frustrating, to be fair.
No, he's a little shit.
Yeah, he would annoy me.
Yeah. But I like that sort of making the character you knew in the 80s a sort of, working dad, and it's still working, and you can still see it's the same guy.
Yeah.
But then developing him more and kind of, having him come to terms with, what he learned under Mr. Miyagi.
And he has to find a way to reapply it in his own life.
Yeah, and not just with karate, but with work and family. And that's kind of the same with Johnny, where it's his life kind of went down the crapper.
I mean, look, we see more of Daniel in sort of the original movies. It was his franchise. We don't see that much of Johnny in his sort of home life in the show, but in the movies. But this is what makes the sort of show great.
Johnny in the original movie, he's a pretty one-dimensional villain. He's just a bully.
He's the bad guy.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about the show is that it's showing that he's more. There's more to him than just that.
There are layers.
Yeah, but we were worried before the first season came out. That's not. That's not just this one thing. It's not just, what if the bad guy from Karate Kid wasn't really a bad guy?
It's not, now there's this whole meme thing years before this show came out from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
About how Johnny was actually the good guy and Daniel was the bad guy.
Yeah.
And while that's funny,
I've always thought that was dumb. It's funny, but
this sort of, it doesn't play with that idea a little bit. It just shows you that
it does. It takes that idea, but it doesn't, that's not just its one gimmick. It then develops that into, this is a actual three-dimensional person who has problems.
We see some of the events from the original movie in particular from his perspective.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
That's funny, yeah.
He's kicked me and he took my girl.
Yeah. But it's legitimately, that's how he feels about it.
Yeah. And exactly, that's what I'm saying about how they reuse scenes from the originals, not just for, hey, remember how cool that was, but it's his twisted version of what happened.
Yeah, and he believes it.
Yeah.
He's it shows them that he's not actually a bad guy. There might be, as you said, some misunderstandings, misreading of a situation. And, he's, I guess, we'll say, fallen victim to that quite a few times.
Yeah.
In the 80s. According to his point of view.
Yeah.
He got assaulted by an old man.
Well, he did. No. And I like that scene. There's the scene where he gets beat up by Mr. Miyagi, which he deserved. But then there's
in his mind, it's we were just trying to sort the issue out once and for all, and then we got beaten up.
But then there's that cool scene where he, remembers Kreese, choking him, and he, sees it. You see it. You see the scene from the movie, but it's also him, seeing it.
He's thinking
a vision, sort of. Not a vision, but, a memory.
He's remembering.
Yeah. So that's cool. But, it never happens for nostalgia reasons. It always happens for character development reasons. And it's the same with, the 80s kind of classic rock soundtrack. And, Johnny's obsessed with, Iron Eagle and other 80s movies. It's not just, hey, remember how cool that was? You remember the 80s? It's he's kind of stuck in that.
Yeah, he peaked
juvenile,
and he's stuck there.
Yeah, the adolescent kind of where he peaked, and then he's kind of trying to relive that.
And I mean, from a certain point of view, you can't blame him. Like, he has nothing else in his life.
Yeah.
Other than those good memories.
Yeah.
Like, he has a shit job.
Exactly. And
he's
which is
not
why
in contact with his son.
Yeah, which is why he brings Cobra Kai back, is to sort of give him purpose again, and to sort of give. And that's why this is another interesting argument, which I hope they develop more in season 3. I just mentioned, Miyagi-Do comes back as a sort of offense, which is...
It's anti-Cobra Kai motivated.
Yeah, but it's also against what Miyagi-Do's teachings are, to bring karate just for
offense. Yeah,
offense.
It's strictly defensive.
You could argue that because Cobra Kai exists, they're coming to be defensive.
Nah, I don't think that flies.
But I think Daniel, like we said, Daniel's a hothead. In his mind, it's like, we have to bring it back. But
in the original movie, Mr. Miyagi didn't particularly care about Cobra Kai.
No, he didn't care about fighting, the competition. He was like, it's stupid. Which we'll talk about Karate Kid 3, how that ties in. But I think what's interesting is that because Johnny is bringing karate back for his own, because it's his purpose, that's almost more Miyagi-Do. Even though his teachings are
not very peaceful.
Yeah. He's overall, he wants to practice karate because it's what gives him his purpose. And he wants to help kids.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. His motivation for doing it isn't it's not muddy. It's like he needs to get himself out of this funk. It's something that he's good at.
Yeah.
And he sees these kids that they need his help.
Yeah.
He needs to, in his mind of view, he's trying to teach these kids some self-respect, some self-discipline.
Exactly. He's just going about it the wrong way, because that's what he was, Mr. Miyagi says, is there's no such thing as bad students,
just
only
bad
teachers. And it's like Johnny teaches the Cobra Kai way because he was taught by Kreese that way, that no mercy, But he in his heart, he just wants to help the kids and practice karate and teach karate. And I think that's interesting with his first student, Miguel, how his journey goes from he's an innocent kind of kid who gets bullied, who wants to fight back, so he learns karate from Johnny, but Johnny teaches him a way that's kind of, pretty hardcore and violent. And so when he uses that, and when Johnny realizes that's what's happening, he tries to rein Miguel in, but it's kind of too late, because Miguel's already seeing how being a badass can...
How effective violence is.
And then when Kreese comes back...
And everything gets much worse.
Yeah, and it's just when Miguel sort of starts to realize that Johnny may be right, and that there's he has to fight with honor, and he, maybe there's a sort of middle ground to the Cobra Kai teachings.
Johnny amends it somewhat. He tries to rectify it by being strike first, strike hard, no mercy, but you need to have
fight with honor. Yeah.
Fight with honor.
And so, but when Kreese comes in and sort of seduces or corrupts most of the other students, then that's really interesting, because Johnny kind of realizes the error in the Cobra Kai teachings and tries to keep that badass quality, but also fight with honor. And Kreese is just nah. Go full,
go
hardcore.
Yeah, and I'd just like to point out that it's actually really good to see that is Martin Cove. Is that his name?
Cove or Cove? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you pronounce it, but he's in really pretty good shape.
I mean, considering how old he is, I guess.
No, but it's just it's good that he was able to come back into the show.
I think when he came in at the end of season 1, as the cliffhanger, it was whoa, this is going to be awesome. But his sort of involvement in season 2 is just so good.
It is so good.
And again, it's not just remember that guy, he's the bad guy again. It's
in our analogy, he's a Sith Lord.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. I've got a whole thing of analogies, but
I love the way he's quietly seduces, like a really good Sith would. He's just turning you to the dark side.
And I like we mentioned earlier, Johnny and Kreese initially bond over that idea of
these kids are soft.
These kids are soft, kind of MAGA. We always joke,
make karate great again.
Yeah, we always joke that it's they're Johnny's a MAGA hat. He's a Trump voter. He's all about PC is bullshit, and kids are soft now, and it's all about classic cars and classic rock, and And what's he concussions? What does he say?
Concussion nonsense.
Yeah, it's like all that concussion doesn't exist. But he's kind of stuck in that way. And Kreese, he initially bonds with Kreese over that, but Kreese is like full into that. Whereas I think Johnny over season 2 slowly, and at the end of season 1, kind of slowly realizes that like he's like, yeah, he was kind of wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah, the way he was taught is wrong.
Yeah.
Like he wants to be better than
exactly. And I'm hoping in season 3, we'll talk about this later, but perhaps Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai, Johnny's version of Cobra Kai, sort of combine. Because I know a lot of people on Reddit are saying it's going to be Miyagi-Kai.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be like,
maybe balance is the thing that Johnny can find.
Exactly.
In his life.
It's like one, it fits into the whole balance thing because it's like yin and yang. It's like good and evil together. So it's like Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do together. But it's like, obviously, Miyagi-Do hasn't worked in this context, and Cobra Kai obviously doesn't work because it's evil. So I think it would be interesting for Johnny, who has learnt that he's kind of gone off the path, and Daniel has sort of gone off the path. Like, it'd be interesting if they kind of have to combine forces against Kreese, because now Kreese has kind of taken over Cobra Kai again and like seduced all of Johnny's students.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Because I think Johnny is like sort of the ego check to Daniel.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think maybe, they need each other at the end of the day.
And that's why, like I was saying before, like I feel like the writers are sort of working towards a final reconciliation.
They definitely they're laying groundwork for something.
Yeah. Like they don't have to become BFFs, but they have to get over their beef 100%. And I think it'll be interesting if Ali, who is kind of hinted at in season 1, but at the end of season 2, you see on Johnny's phone that she sends him a friend request on Facebook. So I'm thinking they're gonna work that in. If I'm hoping Elizabeth Shue returns to the role.
I mean, I would hope if they've they've had at least tentative talks.
If they couldn't get her back, I'm hoping they
just don't do it.
Right? Yeah. I'm hoping that if for some reason she isn't in the show, then that kind of cliffhanger where he gets a friend request
just wouldn't have happened.
Is just is just a cliff. Like it's just like, because he throws away his phone as a sense of like, this is not working. I've had enough. I'm gonna but then you see the friend request on the phone. So I'm hoping that if they don't get Elizabeth Shue back, then that friend request will just be like a sort of
an Easter egg
or a sort of a way of him rejecting the past and saying, I've had enough, I don't care. And then that never comes up again. But if she does come back, I'm really hoping that this will tie into her being the mediator between Daniel and Johnny, because they still haven't gotten over it. Especially Johnny.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, in a way, you're like, oh, get over it. You don't need to bring her back. She's a girlfriend they had in the 80s. She's from the original movie. It's just nostalgia bullshit.
She's still relevant to the show.
Yeah, it ties into the whole themes of like...
Especially Johnny's arc.
Johnny's obsessed with the 80s, and Daniel and Johnny still have the same beef they had in high school. And it's like
I'd love for it to come in and be like, are you kidding me?
Exactly. So I'm hoping...
so stupid.
Exactly. I'm hoping if she comes in, she'll be just like, you know what? I'm squashing this beef now. And that it kind of works towards the overall arc and the overall conclusion of like having these characters finally be like, you know what? Forget the 80s. Forget the original movies. We're moving on. Because I think as the show does so well, nostalgia can be dangerous. It's the MAGA problem. Like acting like
the way you remember something isn't always
exactly. So I think like we said, the show deals so well with how the nostalgia is just for the characters to grow and is not just for nostalgia's sake, like Star Wars is.
I mean, some of the best nostalgia sort of moments in the season for me, season 2 specifically. Was when we see Johnny's old friends again.
Oh, that was so good.
And like, there's a lot of nostalgia in that episode, but it's there to drive the character drama.
I love that. Yeah, I love that scene because, it's not just there to say, hey, remember his friends from the original? it's kind of like it aids in Johnny's overall development and his decision to sort of go back and confront Kreese.
Yeah.
Who he was sort of trying to forgive and trying to be like, people can change. And then, he meets with his friends. And I like how Bobby is like a priest or a minister. And I'm pretty sure he's the one in the originals who's like the voice of conscience when they're beating up Daniel. Yeah. He's like, hey, it's enough, So I like how they kind of push that to its furthest thing. It's like he's the most moral of all the bullies. And so he became a priest. But Tommy has cancer.
And it's terminal.
Yeah, like
he's in hospice.
It's his last days, and that's why Johnny and all the friends get together. And they're hanging out and reminiscing. But it kind of informs more of Johnny's journey than just, hey, remember the guys. And they put Tommy in a body bag. Put him in a body bag. And then they did.
Yeah, then they did.
Poor Tommy. Tommy in the original was like yelling about getting Daniel a body bag, and then they gave him cancer and killed him off. But
I watched that episode. I messaged you. I'm like, "Have you seen this?" And we're trying not to
in all caps
for Callum. Yeah, like we're trying because we weren't sure if.
And I'm like, "Has Callum seen it?" I'm like, "No."
I'll
message you out of the group chat, and I'm like, in all caps. They put Tommy in a body bag.
And it's so good.
But again, it's not just an Easter egg. It's not just a reference. It's not just nostalgia. It's like literally that scene ends and then Johnny is like, screw this. I'm going back. And also that time he was away for the funeral gives Kreese the chance. He
manipulates all the kids.
Yeah, it gives him a chance to sort of seduce all the students. But then when Johnny comes back, he's like, look, Kreese, like I'm the head of Cobra Kai. Like you I'm the teacher. You listen to me. So yeah, I'm hoping that kind of furthers in season 3, where Johnny's now that Kreese has control of Cobra Kai, Johnny has to strike back.
Yeah,
or,
definitely.
Sort of find a way to
strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
Well, yeah, but in a sort of, sort of like he should team up with Miyagi-Do and So I think that's also interesting. Like we were talking about Miguel, who I think is an interesting character. He's a likable character, but also he starts off as a good guy and he sort of turns into a bad guy. Whereas Robbie, who's Johnny's son,
starts off as a bad guy and slowly turns into a good guy.
But now they've kind of crisscrossed again, and Miguel has sort of realized his sort of wrong ways, and Robbie has
committed an act of extreme violence.
But I think Robbie has sort of he's stayed on the Miyagi-Do path, but he's like Daniel, he gets frustrated and he's hot-headed. But when Miguel shows mercy to Robbie at the final fight at the end of season 2, which is kind of what against Cobra Kai's teachings, against Kreese's teachings, but more towards what Johnny was telling him to fight with honor. So he does the right thing, but it's then that Robbie kind of fights back. And I don't blame Robbie because it was an accident. Like, he didn't mean to kick him off the stairs.
Yeah, of course.
But like Miguel gets like gravely injured.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned before with the Hippocratic Oath, the doctor's reference, in season 1 they mention Ali is a surgeon, I think. So I mean, I don't know, this might be too on the nose, but now Miguel is in need of surgery and she's just friend requested Johnny. I don't know. There's she could possibly come back and help with Miguel's recovery. Also, Samantha, who's Daniel's daughter, who he taught karate at a young age, but she sort of left that behind. She grew up and she's like, it's not cool.
It's not cool to be involved with your dad's activities.
Yeah, and she's like, I want to, hang out with my friends and do my own thing.
Dad's not cool.
And then when Daniel trains Robbie, and that he finally gets an apprentice and someone to sort of do karate with and to share Miyagi's teachings with. Because
I think, at the end of the day, a student is what Daniel really wants.
Yeah, but I like that, and I like how Robbie is the one person who needs that guidance, just like Daniel did, and I like how Samantha sort of slowly, over season 2, sort of rejoins Miyagi-Do.
But that's only because there's a boy involved.
Well, yeah, and then she has the hots for Robbie. But again, like I was saying, like I was saying, with Miguel's kind of starting as the good guy, going into the bad guy, then slowly swerving back into the good guy again, and Robbie starting as the bad guy, turning into the good guy, and then swerving back into the bad guy again. I think Samantha's interesting. Well, it's because she was with Miguel, and then now she's with Robbie, but then now she's kind of swerved a little bit back towards... This is all a very broad description of the actual details and the nuances of the writing, which is actually really well done.
Yeah.
I'm very painting this with a broad brush, but you get what I say. Like, you get what I'm saying. Like, now she's kind of maybe in season 3 she helps Miguel with his recovery. She trains with him, and Miguel joins Miyagi-Do, whereas Robbie, who's now pretty much a criminal,
has to go to Johnny.
Has to go to Johnny, who's his last sort of... Because
Johnny won't turn his back on Miguel.
Yeah, Robbie rejected Johnny by going to Daniel and learning Miyagi-Do, but now that he's done this thing and hurt Miguel and Daniel doesn't trust Robbie anymore, it's like he kind of has to go back to his dad. And Johnny, I guess... now doesn't have Cobra Kai or Miguel or any of his students, and so has to kind of take Robbie back.
And this sort of, it also leads into some other sort of character
It's so
stuff.
good. It's so well written, and it's like, we always yell, it writes itself. When there's an idea that sort of seems obvious or that seems like it should progress in a certain way, but it's like that's kind of it's kind of real, but also it's kind of a joke. But it's like, the people who write Cobra Kai, they know what they're doing. They know how to set something up and pay it off. They know how to take a character on a journey.
Definitely. And some of the payoffs on this show are
it's so good.
Tier. Like, and there's still a lot of threads that we can examine in the future. Like, the groundwork's there for like some of the broader issues, like Miguel's recovery, obviously, and like all of these sort of stuff. But there's little things. Yeah. Like, Miguel's injured. What if his dad finds out? His dad comes back.
They mention
his dad's a very bad man.
Yeah, they mention in season 1 that Miguel's dad is like a very bad man.
Assumedly cartel based or
assumedly, in the crime, crime business. But
so you've got that thread. Yeah, we've got Ali. We've got Kreese's takeover of Cobra Kai. Yeah. We still have the unresolved questions of Terry Silver and
Mike Barnes.
Yeah. There's just so many sort of avenues we can explore.
Yeah, so it's like building upon what we saw in the originals, plus all this new stuff with all these new characters. We didn't even talk about Dimitri and Hawk.
No.
So, I mean, that's interesting as well.
And the little kids.
Oh, man. So, like, the end fight scene of Cobra Kai Season 2 is epic. Like, it's so well shot. There's like this long take down the school hallway. Like, there's like people wailing on each other. There's that little kid from Cobra Kai with the glasses, and then the little Asian kid from Miyagi-Do, and they're like wailing on each other. And Stingray, played by was it Paul Walter Hauser from I, Tonya and Black Klansman? Like, that guy's hilarious. And then he kind of inserts himself into Cobra Kai as this kind of older guy. Who's like,
and Johnny's like, this is kind of a kid's class, and he's like, I have money. My mum doesn't charge rent.
Yeah. And like he hangs out with the kids at the party.
And it's so inappropriate. Like, but it's gold.
Yeah. And he's like, he's like going for the security guard position at the school. And then like, he's like wailing on all these kids, like beating the shit out of them. It's hilarious. But yeah, it's such a well shot, well choreographed fight scene with like multiple characters and multiple like miniature fight scenes within this larger fight scene.
And most of the fight scenes are done quite well.
Really
like,
well.
A lot of the choreography.
The karate's really well done, and you can tell people have trained. But also, like, I feel like after this, everyone has to be expelled.
There has to be, hopefully
like,
season 3...
There's no way a school would allow any of this.
Hopefully, at least the first couple of episodes of season 3 just have to be examining the ramifications of this massive fight.
Yeah, like I don't see any way that they can sort of just brush it under the rug and be like a couple of suspensions. Like, there has to be a mass, and then that's when everything has to go downhill. Like, Miyagi-Do's shut down. Cobra Kai, I mean, Kreese is not going to let Cobra Kai get shut down, but the parents are going to,
It's gonna end up in...
It's gonna be like the dark part of the series.
Yeah, quite honestly, like, I think season 3 will start and time is repeating itself, and we're gonna end up back basically to Karate Kid 1.
Yeah.
Like, Cobra Kai is going to be like the big, bad, sort of evil karate school.
Okay.
There's no competition.
Yeah.
Miyagi-Do won't be a thing anymore because Daniel will be disillusioned, or his wife will be like, look, I'm leaving you if you don't sort your stuff out. Well, that's the thing is,
I'm assuming after the fight at the school, even like other parents and the school is going to be like, no karate, no anywhere. I mean, I'm even speculating that the All Valley karate competition
will get shut down.
Because what I liked about season 2 is that they didn't just end it with another All Valley competition. Like, season 1 ended with the competition, like the original movie ended with the competition. But I like how season 2 wasn't just like 1 year later they've trained and now they're facing off again. I like how it was more personal, took place in a shorter time, and ended at the school fight. But yeah, then that's interesting if karate gets such a bad rap that the All Valley gets shut down, and so we don't see the tournament again, at least not in season 3. Or they might be following a similar structure to the original trilogy of Karate Kid, where the first movie ends with the tournament, second movie's in Japan, and the third movie is a year later at the next tournament. So season 1 of Cobra Kai ends with the tournament, season 2 doesn't have the tournament, and then season 3 they might bring the tournament back. So that'll be interesting, especially if now it's Kreese's Cobra Kai versus Johnny and Daniel's Miyagi-Do or Miyagi-Kai or whatever, or possibly a new school, and then having to face off at the competition. Especially if Dimitri and Hawk have to face off in a competition setting.
Yeah. Because you don't think they're going to set that whole thing up for Dimitri to win.
Yeah, but it's like, because a lot of people online complaining, Dimitri would never defeat Hawk, this is some bullshit. I'm like, no, that's the point. Like, Hawk is better trained, he would destroy Dimitri, but he's cocky, he's arrogant, and so he lets his guard down, and Dimitri uses the one thing he's learned in which he spent the whole season screwing up.
Yeah.
And kicks Hawk down or whatever, and because they were best friends and there's all that history between them, like, to push that towards, the season 3 arc, where it's like, then they have to face off properly, where Hawk would probably murder Dimitri, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's all part of, like, I love the show. It's all part of the, like, you can see where they're going with things, and sometimes you
but there's also surprises.
It's a lot of I'm not saying it's predictable. It's just like, everything's done logically, everything's set up and paid off. Like, it's just so well written, and I love all the characters, and all the new characters, like we said, are all really interesting and fun, and the show is so funny.
It is so funny. It's like...
So funny.
I wouldn't call it 100% a comedy, but it's got a lot of humor.
Yeah. I like, how we were saying it has the spirit of the originals, that kind of, underdog, the themes and balance and all that. And it has that. But it also has the kind of cheesy moments as well.
Yeah.
So they
nothing Karate Kid 3 level.
Yeah, no.
Let's hope for a Terror will come back.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. But, like, it lives up to the originals in the cheesy aspect, but also just the comedy writing, like the jokes, quote unquote, the visual, gags and stuff. Like, Johnny gets a laptop. And and he gets hooked up to the internet, and first thing he does is like Google like hot babes. Like, it's hilarious, and he like discovers internet porn for the first time. It's hilarious.
The whole sort of dating the
online dating is hilarious.
Is like, it's so good. He's like Tinder, and he's like swiping.
What is this? He's like, no, ugly.
And then he's like, you know what? Like, yeah, all right.
Yeah. He's like, I like how he gets a smartphone for the first time, and he's like, what the hell is this? And then, like, later in the season, he's like, another update? I just got this. Like, it's so funny. He's so out of touch.
Yeah. And I liked the scenes where Johnny and Daniel and their significant others or their dates or whatever go out for like a meal.
Yeah,
and dancing.
Oh, the double date.
Yeah, the double date
that
scene.
was so good.
It was. And that was...
Oh my God, that was such a great scene.
And they're trying not to sit together, and they're sort of bickering, but also agreeing on some stuff. And by the end of it, they're like having a great time.
Like Johnny and Miguel's mother are having a date, and then Daniel and his wife are like at the same restaurant, and they're like, well, we'll just put the tables together. And they're like, no. And they end up, like, I love their kind of love-hate relationship and their kind of bromance.
Well, it's that thing of like opposites attract, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but it's also they have a lot in common.
They do.
I love that scene in the first season when they're driving in the car. One, they're both car guys.
Yeah.
So maybe even Daniel will hire Johnny because now he doesn't have a job because Cobra Kai's shut down.
That's true.
But also, they're riding in the car and like they're listening.
Singing, yeah.
And Johnny's like, you love Speedwagon, and Daniel's like, yeah, what man doesn't? Like the same, as their car discussion before. Like it's that kind of like they're both 80s kids. They both love karate. They both grew up around the same things. Like, but they still hold on to this beef from 30 years ago that doesn't matter. And that kind of double date scene is so funny.
But also, it's like you can see these characters you can see them wrestling with that beef.
Yeah.
As they try so hard not to like each other.
Yeah.
Like they try really hard to hate each other.
Yeah.
But it's like sometimes it's like they have a good time.
Yeah, that's why like at the end of the season, it's like Daniel thinks Johnny did something with his daughter because Robbie takes her to Johnny's apartment, and they get into that fight in Johnny's apartment, which. Daniel's like, I'm not going to strike first, but it's his kind of fault. He's hot-headed, like he's always the quick to judge. And, Robbie obviously hurt Miguel and kind of disappeared. And so like Daniel and Johnny's relationship is at its sort of worst. But because of Kreese and because of both Daniel going off his path and Johnny going off his path, like I feel like they're forced.
They can reconcile,
yeah. So it's like we were saying, like the progression and the writing's really good. It would make sense for them to come back together and sort of have to combine forces.
I think Daniel's opposition for Cobra Kai and especially Kreese, would probably prove greater than his like maybe occasional dislike / hatred towards Johnny.
Yeah, I guess that. But the thing Johnny and Daniel both share is that they hate Kreese.
Yeah.
And they hate what Kreese is doing with Cobra Kai. So yeah, it'll be interesting if when the show comes to an end, I feel like it'll end with Daniel letting Johnny have Cobra Kai and letting Cobra Kai exist, and saying, because I think it might be even in season 1, but like Daniel says, as long as I'm alive or whatever, like I'll never let Cobra Kai exist. Like, and that's kind of why he brings Miyagi-Do back and whatever. So it'd be interesting if, they do finally squash their beef and they finally get over the 30-year history, but they kind of do so by Daniel learning that he can't just be a controlling asshole all the time. And that kind of, again, ties into, it's a more nuanced, more complex version of the joke of Daniel was the bad guy and Johnny was the good guy. Like, that's a dumb joke and that was never true, but it's like, over the course of the season, the series, like Daniel, they're both Daniel and Johnny are both complex characters with flaws, and
they both make good decisions and bad decisions.
Exactly. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see Daniel's overall arc and how he's like, look, I made mistakes, and Johnny, you should have Cobra Kai, and as like something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's a really great show.
It's all about balance.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's sort of what the main characters in the show need to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we should sort of move on to the Karate Kid 3, which the show mostly has dealt with stuff from the first film, and the second film takes place in Okinawa and is more about Mr. Miyagi's past, so that's not, really important to Johnny. And so they, but it comes into play in all the backstory and it's important in the overall development.
We get tendrils from number 3 in season 2.
But Karate Kid 3, there are sort of, you start to see in season 1 there's a few references, but I think season 2 of Cobra Kai you start to see like you said, the tendrils of Karate Kid 3 creep in. So it'll be interesting to see if they do bring back Terry Silver and Mike Barnes from Karate Kid 3, because I think, like we've been saying...
Well, we made the joke when watching it, like, Terry Silver still technically owns Cobra Kai, doesn't he?
Well, I can't remember if he owns it, but he gave Kreese the money to start it. So, like, you know, he might technically own the brand.
Yeah, so it'd be funny for him to come in and be like, "Excuse me."
But I think what I said would be the best option, because he was like a wealthy business owner in Karate Kid 3. Like a toxic waste dump business,
in
like
great cheesy
such a cheesy 80s villain. Like one of the problems with Karate Kid 3, even though we really like it, is the villains are super cheesy, like over the cartoonish.
Yeah, he like sort of long-haired, greasy ponytail.
Yeah, he's pretty much a mustache twirling villain without a mustache. But like, because he had that business, like it would be interesting to see him as a politician in 2019. Like we were saying with this whole MAGA stuff, and like Kreese and Johnny are living in this, you know, past time that doesn't exist, and are sort of trying to make karate great again. Like, it'd be interesting if Terry Silver, who was a rich guy, like went into politics pretty much because, you know, he's a businessman and wants to sort of
parallels of the political turmoil in the real world.
Exactly, but like that would fit into his character, and also would fit into the whole like him coming in and being like
using all karate gimmicks in his campaign.
And kind of being like, look, I want to make America great again.
And he could come in because he was technically a war veteran, right?
Yeah, he was he was Vietnam buddy of Chris.
So he could be running on a campaign of, I'm a vet, like it all hammered up.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it'd be cool if he came back and was like, you know, not having the same role he did in Karate Kid 3, but being like a politician, kind of being like a side character who's kind of, you know, butting heads with Daniel, who's a business owner, and you know, kind of...
And helping Kreese out with Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe franchising Cobra Kai, making it even bigger, like, you know, like...
Giving Kreese some, like, cheesy videos and, like...
like
having advertising. His ads,
That would be... So it'd be cool to see if they... I feel like they might not do that, and, you know, it depends on how long the show goes, or, you know, how much the writers want to take from that. But the show does so well with weaving in the original elements to the new stuff and kind of developing them more, that I think that would be really cool. And Mike Barnes as well, who was Daniel's opponent in Karate Kid 3. And I think you were telling me the guy who plays Mike Barnes on Twitter...
He's a big fan of the show.
He's a big fan of the show and like wants to be involved. And I feel like the creators of the show, like with Ali, like I feel like even if they don't have concrete plans at the moment, like I feel like they've explored possibilities and possibly reached out to some of these people. So hopefully that plays out. Also, the next Karate Kid, which is the 4th movie with Hilary Swank as Julia, you know, they to cash in, they decided to continue the franchise without Daniel and have Mr. Miyagi train.
Some might say that it was a mistake.
Yeah, it's not really a good movie. It doesn't really work. But if it is canon, which I think I remember reading that the creators of the show said it still technically exists in the canon, they just haven't referenced it yet. But it'd be really interesting if the show continues on, if they add that in, and if
bring Hilary Swank back and be like, I'm the other Miyagi-Do student,
and her butting heads with Daniel, and he'd be like, who the hell are you? Like, I don't also know you.
Like, she finds him at like Mr. Miyagi's grave or something.
Yeah, it's like what?
Yeah.
And then she's like, Mr. Miyagi told me. He's like, what? I thought it was a special thing between me and...
He's like...
Mr. Miyagi's such a whore.
His life comes crashing down. He's like, I'm not the only student.
And for like someone like Hilary Swank, who's like now seen as this, you know, big Oscar actor, to come in onto this show would be so great.
Onto this YouTube dramedy about karate.
YouTube got so lucky with this show. Like, the fact that they got this show over Netflix, like, I feel like if it was on Netflix, everyone would be watching it, everyone would be talking about it.
I'm glad that it exists on YouTube. I think the reason it went to YouTube was because the director of, like, marketing or products, whoever they talk to, requisitions, like, they pitched the show to them. I think it's a lady. And she was, like, on board with their... like vision, and she quote unquote she got the show like more than the sort of other partners.
That's weird, like, you know, because we would always talk about Netflix gives creative control to the creators and like is kind of basically just like throw money at things and see how if it works. So it'd be interesting to see what that discussion was, and because I'm pretty sure
they pitched it without a script.
Okay.
So they pitched. This is from an interview.
Maybe Netflix wasn't happy about that. Yeah.
So they came in they said we've got like Billy Zabka and like they're on board.
Yeah.
Like
Ralph
we've
Macchio.
pitched. Ralph Macchio. They pitched their idea first to the two lead actors.
Yeah.
And they were like, if you can get it made, we're 100% in.
Yeah.
So then they went to all these different services.
Yeah.
And everyone was a bit cool on it, but they talked to the YouTube lady. In charge of like the YouTube originals, original programming, and
which is like this is their one show, like they have other shows, but no one watches those. No one knows what.
Ralph Macchio and Billy Zabka were there for the meeting, and they said, "Well, we're on board with this.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't got anything yet, but like this is the sort of it was the show creators and the two leads." And they basically said, this is the overall plan for the show.
Yeah.
And, like, she was on it straight away.
Well, like...
And she was like, this is great. So it's like this, and this. And they're like, yes.
Yeah, like that's... I remember, I think Ralph Macchio tweeted or something. He's like, the reason we went to YouTube is because they were the ones who let us do what we wanted to do. So, yeah, it'd be interesting... like I said, why they didn't go to Netflix, what the other services, networks, what their problem was. But yeah, it's just amazing that YouTube got this out of all the places.
And it's done so well on YouTube.
Yeah, like I can't recommend this show enough to people. Like I feel like people need to watch it.
I feel like people like my dad, for instance, he's not too hot on it and he thinks it's maybe too cheesy for him. But I'm like, if he gave it a shot, he'd like it.
It's such a good show.
It's just, I guess, the stigma of maybe being like younger characters at the forefront. Because if he gave it a shot, he'd like it. I know he would.
Yeah. But it's that perfect mix of of like the older characters, teaching the new characters and...
But then I don't think he liked the Karate Kid one anyway.
See,
that's his fault.
Yeah. That's his problem.
That's his problem.
But I think the show is accessible enough, even if you haven't seen the originals or don't really like them that much. I think the show it's kind of a different. It's different but same. Like it has that
all the important sort of character
has the spirit of the originals. Yeah. Without it's the things that Star Wars does so poorly. Has the spirit of the originals, continues them on, but also has new characters, has fresh, modern feeling.
Definitely, and I would agree that you don't need to watch the originals if you don't really want to, because like all these sort of...
It's all pretty much explained.
Yeah, like you have those flashbacks and...
Yeah, it's important, like, it definitely adds to a fuller, better experience. Like
it's a much better experience.
We watched, Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3, and then binged Cobra Kai Season 1, and then binged Cobra Kai Season 2, all in pretty close proximity. And it just, you get all that... Get all the references and
even
feeling.
Tiny little Easter eggs. Yeah. Like there's that one scene where Daniel takes out the little drum he got in Japan.
Yeah.
And he's just looking at it
movie,
and playing with it. And it's just like, it's those little things that you're just like, I remember that.
Yeah. But not just that, just the overall feeling and the themes and the kind of like we said, it's just so well structured and so it continues on from the original so well.
It's flawless.
It's like it flows so well.
And we should just like to point out that season 1 in September will be going free on YouTube if you can't afford YouTube Premium or
whatever happened to YouTube Red. Like remember they called YouTube Red.
It's the same thing.
But now they just rebranded it as Premium. Like I don't know what happened there. I guess
I don't know.
It confused people. I don't know.
Google has some issues.
Maybe
with
is there Pornhub Premium? Like maybe they're like we need that branding. We need to trick people.
Yeah. So season 1 of Cobra Kai is free on YouTube in September, supported by ads.
Yeah.
But if that's the only way you can watch it, I still encourage you to watch it.
Definitely.
It's such a good show.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, season 2 is being released weekly for free on YouTube.
Okay.
Supported by ads.
Yeah. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what they do with season 3.
Yeah. Well, I think they're transitioning all the original programming over to free with ads because the experiment failed.
Yeah, Premium, I don't think was that successful. And like I said,
and look,
Cobra Kai is their one show.
They have a couple others, and they're not very good.
Yeah.
But like, I think this is the best idea for YouTube.
Yeah.
Because if this show was free, supported by ads, the ad revenue would probably dwarf. With proper advertising and proper marketing, the ad revenue for shows of this quality would dwarf anything they'd get from
I feel
paying
like
for it.
I'm kind of confused as to why they haven't gotten more shows like Cobra Kai on YouTube. Like after Cobra Kai, I don't think there was anything that big or that well done. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to continue that sort of getting shows developed for YouTube or
Yeah, I definitely think going free, supported by ads, especially on a platform like YouTube with billions of viewers, is the best way to go. In an ecosystem full of paid services.
Yeah. For exactly, yeah, to have a
Google,
free,
yeah, for Google to come out and be like, you can watch your show for free.
Yeah,
we're not going to charge you.
Yeah,
people, it's like there'll be some ads every now and again, but people will be like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Like, I mean, it's still ads aren't great, but it's still better than not watching it at all.
True. So I guess we should move on to what people really want to hear. Trigger warning. So we're watching the Karate Kid original movies. And then Cobra Kai. But, we can definitely see those parallels to
a certain property.
To Star Wars. Like, to the hero's journey, the underdog story, and how you could easily remake the Karate Kid movies into new Star Wars movies. Luke is a Mr. Miyagi character now, or like a Daniel character in Cobra Kai. Like, he's an older character, like teacher who teaches someone. So then Ray is the Daniel or the Robbie or the Miguel character who comes in and is like a bit unsure of themselves and what their path is and gets taught and it writes itself.
It does. It writes itself.
But it's like. Yeah, there are so many parallels in the original movies and in Cobra Kai, that you could easily transplant into the new Star Wars sequel trilogy, and that would have made a much better experience and would have helped with the both having the original legacy characters have their time and send off, but also passing the torch to the new characters, which the new movies have done so poorly. There's so much things that we talk about, but we'll just do the quick version. So I guess we'll start with Karate Kid 3 and kind of work our way up to Cobra Kai. But Karate Kid 3 deals with Daniel.
Daniel goes to the dark side of the bit.
Daniel gets forced to fight in the tournament by the new Cobra Kai under Terry Silver, and Mike Barnes. And pretty much he gets bullied into competing so that they can win the title back from him. But Mr. Miyagi, he's not about fighting. He's like, I don't want you to be in the tournament. Miyagi-Do's not about fighting. Don't fight. And this kind of pushes Daniel, who keeps getting bullied and pushed and getting violent acts committed against him by these new Cobra Kai kids, and kind of pushes him towards to the dark side. And Terry Silver comes in pretending to be this sort of white knight, pretending to be not involved with Cobra Kai, even though he's masterminding the plan. And it's all cartoonish and a bit silly, but it works, I think, overall. And kind of seduces Daniel to the dark side and says, if you really want to win, if you really want to kick these guys' asses, you have to do the Cobra Kai way. You have to...
hardcore
violence.
It's let's punch a wooden board until your knuckles bleed.
Exactly.
Hardcore.
And Mr. Miyagi's not about that, and Daniel's like, you know what, Mr. Miyagi, screw you. I'm gonna, if you don't want to fight, I have to fight.
It's that whole hot-headed thing you were talking about before, where Daniel's such a hot-headed and he's goaded easily.
Yeah, exactly.
And so Miyagi's all like, just calm your farm, man.
Exactly.
Just calm your farm, balance.
But I think I like this could easily transplant into The Last Jedi, where Luke could be the Miyagi character who's like, I don't want to fight anymore. Fighting just leads to more violence, more fighting. And
hate leads to the dark side.
Exactly.
Man.
So and Rey, who's obviously gone through fighting the First Order, she's like, dude, what the hell? We
need to win.
Yeah, we need to fight. You have to get off your ass. And Luke's like, it's not the Miyagi-Do way. It's not the Jedi way.
Yeah.
And so Rey could get and Kylo, Silver could be Kylo. Kylo kind of seduces Rey and says, look, you have to come to the dark side and fight. This is how you fight. Of course, in this version, the Knights of Ren would be Cobra Kai and Kylo would be sort of pretending to sort of care about the fight against whoever the big bad guy is or whatever, Snoke or whatever. So yeah, it's just a much better, and it also fits in better with the Jedi code. Instead of Luke just being like, I don't want to fight anymore, I don't have any faith anymore, the Jedi suck, it should all end. he could be more like, the actual Jedi way is not to fight, is to find balance, is to find peaceful options. And that kind of pushes Rey away because she's hot-headed, she wants to fight. And you can still have that Last Jedi kind of what Johnson was trying to do, but an actual well-developed, well-fleshed-out version of that also takes into consideration the actual core values of Luke as a character and the Jedi and what Kylo's about and so on, and have more Kylo Rey stuff going on. Like, it's just a much better film that also stays true to what Star Wars is.
It's just so much better. As you said, it writes itself.
It writes
James.
itself. It makes so much more sense. There's obviously more we could talk about in terms of that, but
we can have a 3-hour episode on
we could
the intricacies.
Honestly, when we started the episode and I did the trigger warning, it was like, because we could have done the whole episode on the Star Wars comparisons. But in terms of like, we're watching Cobra Kai season 1, and kind of Daniel has he doesn't have Miyagi-Do. Miyagi-Do's not active. He doesn't practice karate often. Samantha, his daughter, is kind of not into karate anymore. He doesn't have a student. But because of Cobra Kai opening up, he has to open
when the Sith return, so must the Jedi. Yeah,
exactly. So he has to open Miyagi-Do. He trains Robbie. And so that would be interesting as well if if Rey was actually a Skywalker, none of this mystery box bullshit, who is she, who are her parents, like, just have her be a Skywalker.
We might find out in episode 9.
Well, yeah, but at this point it's too late, and we talked about how that's mishandled. But, in our, like, perfect, world, this version, it's like, she's a Skywalker, she's Luke's daughter, but she's not into the Jedi stuff, or she's been off on adventures across the universe, whatever. But Luke is kind of like, trains a sort of a new apprentice, but he turns to the dark side. It could be the Kylo, the Robbie of the Cobra Kai comparison. And then he, like in the new Star Wars films, he destroys the Jedi Temple and kills the students, and Luke is depressed and doesn't want to go on. But eventually, Rey comes back, whether she's the daughter or whether she's just a random student like kind of Miguel, or, she comes back and says, we have to fight, you have to fight. And that's kind of like what Daniel does, is like, I have to make Miyagi-Do again. And so there was this bit in, I believe, the very end of season 1, where Robbie is Miyagi-Do, is Daniel's only student.
Yeah.
And he, at the end of season 1, after Robbie loses the tournament against Miguel, he takes Robbie to Mr. Miyagi's house with the beautiful, like, Japanese garden at the back.
In this metaphor, that will be back to like a Jedi training ground.
Exactly.
Luke's own training.
And he says,
back to the swamp with Yoda.
Yeah, and he says to Robbie, like, if we want to fight Cobra Kai, we're going to need more students.
Oh, yeah.
And I stood up and I was like,
could you imagine? Jedi temple.
Could you imagine if at the end of Force Awakens, Luke, Kylo has betrayed him, turned to the dark side, destroyed the Jedi temple, killed his students, and Luke is disillusioned. If he trains Rey, fights Kylo,
we're going to need more Jedi.
Then at the very end of Force Awakens, like, if we're going to fight the Knights of Ren, if we're going to fight the First Order, whatever they're called, we're going to need more students. And it ends with Luke going to the temple on Yavin, which is where he starts his Jedi school in the original expanded universe, and the end shot is of the temple.
I get chills.
And him and Rey standing in front of the temple being like, we're going to restart the Jedi school. Oh my God. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Hair on my back of my neck stands up. Chills. Like, amazing. Could you imagine that? People would have went wild.
Force Awakens could have been redeemed.
And then Last Jedi...
Not really, but Hope in Star Wars could be renewed.
And then Last Jedi follows that Cobra Kai template of, like, recruiting the new Miyagi-Do students, is recruiting the new Jedis. The young kids who are not sure of their place in the world. And meanwhile, Cobra Kai is, the Knights of Ren.
They're just being bad across the galaxy.
The more hardcore version, the bullies.
And that's set up, and that's sort of, you could set up like all the really like the disastrous things they're doing.
Yeah.
And Luke's like, no, patience, we're not ready. And
also, and also it could fit into Kylo's redemption arc, which is not well done in the new movies, and it's going to be interesting to see how they ruin that in episode 9. But, if Kylo is Johnny in this situation, and he's like gone off and created Cobra Kai / Knights of Ren, but then Snoke / Kreese comes and says, well, no, actually, this is, I taught you the dark side ways. This is actually, Knights of Ren is actually my school. And then Kylo / Johnny has to sort of go towards Daniel / Luke and has to be like, maybe I was wrong for leaving you, and then sort of we have to both combine forces to fight Snoke together.
And it's Kylo's return to at least the path of light.
Yeah,
like somewhere.
Exactly, he realizes he's like Johnny and teaches Miguel the hardcore way, and then Miguel uses the hardcore way, and then Johnny's like, yeah, but you did it without honor, and so Miguel slowly starts to come back now. So that's all that could have been a really cool Snoke Kylo interaction, where it's like, I'm going to teach you the hardcore way, and you're going to do the hardcore way, and if you don't, you're fucked. And then, he's slow, and then Luke's like, but, I taught you the real way, like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it writes itself.
Disney, contact us.
Send us a check.
You can find our Facebook page.
Tweet us. But yeah, like, it's just, the same way Kreese seduces Johnny's students, and creates his splinter faction of Cobra Kai, Snoke could do that to Kylo's Knights of Ren or whatever, But of course, they squandered all that potential and they mishandle that, and they have no idea what they're doing. So yeah, but it's just like, like we talked about how it's just they mishandled Star Wars so badly, and Cobra Kai and Creed as well. Like that is how you continue a beloved franchise 30 years on. That is how you mix in original legacy characters with new characters. That's how you pass the torch. That's how you logically progress the world and the characters, Cobra Kai is a great show because of how it deals with that.
And I just can't wait to see more.
Yeah, and it manages to still feel fresh. And I can't wait to season 3. I'm so glad it got renewed, because I was a bit worried there with YouTube, like what the money situation was, what the viewership situation was. So I'm really glad that got renewed. Because, even though we were just talking about, the Orville and how we're not sure about how that's going to go with Fox. So I'm really happy that at least Cobra Kai, we know we've got that 3rd season.
Yeah, it's just, we're so lucky to have this show.
Yeah, it's such a good show. Highly recommended. Better Star Wars than actual Star Wars.
We say that a lot, but this one is legit. It's tight.
Yeah, it's just so well done, and it's such a good show, and I can't wait to see more. And it's just disappointing that Star Wars and Star Trek and some other reboots and stuff haven't had that attention to the craft and to the characters and the world and the story.
But James, gritty's better, right?
What?
Gritty's better, right? Grimdark.
Gritty, yeah. Subverting expectations.
Gritty always has to be better. And the darker the better.
Yeah, and nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, and money.
Money's everything in this life.
That's the most important part. But yeah, we'll end it there. But yeah, like Cobra Kai, best show. Love it so much. Can't wait for season 3. The original Karate Kid trilogy, really good. Check out those. Karate Kid 3, people don't like, but actually solid.
Don't listen to them. Watch it for yourself.
And it's pretty good Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Karate Kid 2 is also pretty good. Nothing's ever going to beat the first one, but
yeah,
that's hard. Next Karate Kid 4, you can skip that one. Not great.
Ignore the Jackie Chan movie.
That remake does not exist, and it makes me physically ill just to thinking about it. But the fourth movie will become really, really interesting if they do include that in Cobra Kai at some point, depending on how the show goes. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around for another of my Star Wars rants. Make sure to like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at Tuesday Review AU. You can download the podcast on your regular podcasting app, or find us on Shout Engine, or you can also get it on iTunes or Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe there. Follow me on Instagram at Channel Drifter. I post every time I watch a movie, so it's like a catalogue of all the movies I watch. Our friends Alan and Jake have a video game show, Sunrise Arcade.
You can listen to that live or on podcast through Shout Engine.
Yeah.
Every morning, live every morning.
Yeah, 10 a.m.
10 a.m. on Saturday. I'm usually there.
Yeah, on 98.9 Northwest FM. Otherwise, just Google Sunrise Arcade podcast, and I'm sure you'll find it on Shout Engine or elsewhere. And Matt, our good friend, has his show Car Talk, TORQUE. Google that, like his page, and listen to his podcast. I think that's it. Don't think I forgot anything.
No, we got it all.
The Cobra Kai never dies.
Cobra Kai never dies.
Adios, cousins.